Hello everyone, this is part 1 of What If Naruto Fought for Sakura's Love. This story is made by iluvwind, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. You know what, team? You gained weight. A blonde-haired teenager dragged his feet in exhaustion as he walked through the evacuated streets of Konoha. A raven-haired teen about the same age as him was unconscious on his back. He looked up from his feet, to see the hospital straight ahead of him. He smiled slightly as he walked through the doors only to be mobbed by several medics, slipping his unconscious teammate off his back and tending to both their wounds. The blonde fell onto the bed he was being pushed onto and soon succumbed to the exhaustion that had been plaguing him. Now this is a vacation, Ino mumbled in delight as she slipped into the steaming water of the hot springs resort. I can't believe Hokage-sama gave us 2 months off. Well, we have been on non-stop missions for what? 2 months in a row. Besides, we need the distraction, Tenten observed from next to Ino. But we haven't seen our friends and family for that long either, Hinata said quietly. They all looked down into the depths of the clear water. That is probably the other reason, Ino said softly. Tenten and Hinata looked at her, slightly confused by her statement. Sakura has been working non-stop since her parents' deaths. Tsunade probably wants her to relax. They all sighed and nodded. The door slid open and the three kunoichi looked up to see Sakura, a towel held up to her front, walking towards them. Ever since that day 3 months ago, Sakura had been silent. She rarely spoke, or laughed. She had 2 facial expressions, emotionless and blank. Ino had tried everything to get her out of the emotionless pit she had fallen into, but nothing worked. Ino suddenly smiled, turning to face Sakura as the pink-haired teen slipped into the water, leaving her towel in a pile next to the edge. One thing had been gently forcing Sakura to become her old self. The knuckle-headed blonde who had been the one to tell her parents were the one who had stayed up all night holding her as she cried. The one who dropped everything to tend to her every need. That stupid Barker. Ino smirked. Naruto would always be there for Sakura. No matter how sad she had been in the last 3 months, Naruto had gotten her out of the pit. He took her out training, out for food, even for a simple stroll around the village. And on the rare occasions when Ino had seen them together, the glimmer was back in Sakura's eyes, her face lit up with a smile or laughter at Naruto's stupidity. The more time Sakura spent with Naruto, the more she became her old self. Sakura, doesn't this water feel nice? Sakura nodded and suddenly smiled at Ino. They all seemed to jump a little at her smile. It was small and warm. Yeah. I haven't felt warmth like this for a long time now. She leaned her head back against the stone ledge and looked up into the midnight purple sky. It feels so much better than the cold. She smiled and closed her eyes, sinking slightly deeper into the crystalline water. Water was suddenly splashed onto her face. Sakura jolted up and scowled at the giggling Ino and Tenten. What's with the ever-stoic Sakura? She splashed her again. Sakura smirked and splashed back. Tenten soon joined Ino's side. The girls laughed and giggled until they all splashed the timid Hinata, who joined Sakura's team. After 30 minutes the girls went in to change, their hair and towels sopping wet from the water fight. Hinata and Tenten left the room to get a table at the restaurant in the lobby, long lavender bathrobes hugging their curves. Sakura was about to leave, when Ino cornered her. So, are you going to answer my question? What happened to the cold and emotionless Sakura that has been here for the past 3 months? Sakura looked away. The past 3 months passing in front of her eyes. An image suddenly appeared in her mind and she closed her eyes, savoring the warmth coming from the smile. I guess I got tired of the cold and finally found something warm. She looked at Ino, her eyes glimmering as she smiled warmly at her. Ino smiled as the two of them walked away from the changing rooms and headed towards the restaurant. As they neared the table where Tenten was waving from, Ino finally spoke, glancing at Sakura. You fell in love with him, didn't you? Sakura stopped as Ino continued on for several steps before stopping and turning around, her hand resting on her hip. What? You fell in love with the warmth he brings you, Sakura. What the hell do you mean you found him in the middle of the training grounds like this? Tsunade screamed at Kakashi as a stretcher being wheeled out of the emergency room passed behind her. Kakashi cowered away from her slightly, keeping the emotionless expression on his face. That's what I said, Hokage-sama, he said softly. She growled and watched the medics wheel the stretcher into a nearby room. She sighed. How is he, by the way? She turned and looked at the masked Junin. Slay for now. I don't know why he is in this condition. Judging from where you found him, he overdid his training, but Kakashi waited for the rest. That doesn't make much sense considering how low his chakra is. Tsunade-sama, doesn't that support the idea of him collapsing from training to hard? Especially since he just got out of the hospital, Kakashi added ruefully. No. He has such an unlimited chakra source that no matter what he should have a certain amount of chakra but his chakra levels are below where they are normally. She looked at the slightly stunned Junin. He could have collapsed because even trying with a Rasengan, which he can do no problem normally, could have drained him of the chakra he needed to stay conscious, and he usually uses cage bushins in his training so that adds more strain to his body and chakra levels. Kakashi nodded despite getting very little of what she said. So basically, there is something else causing this. They began to walk to a room as Medical Nin exited, glancing back over their shoulders. The Hokage and Kakashi stood in the doorway watching the heavy breathing of the blonde in the hospital bed. The curtains were drawn and a wet towel was DRD across his sweat-covered forehead. That's what everything seems to point to, Tsunade said, crossing her arms. Besides, have you ever seen Naruto take a break in the last 3 months? I wouldn't be surprised if stress caused him to collapse. He has been working non-stop, as a shinobi and as a friend. Tsunade nodded and closed the door. Let's just hope he gets better before she gets back, or we might have a min crisis on our hands. Damn it, where the hell are my clothes? A blonde 18-year-old wandered around his hospital room looking for his black and orange jacket, pants and black t-shirt. A lace was the only thing other than his green with yellow dot boxes. The teenager was by no means a buff weightlifter, but he was well defined in his chest, abs and limbs. His tanned face had lost the baby fat from his younger years, but his whiskers had remained. His perfect blue eyes flitted over everything in his room, in an attempt to find the clothes that for an inanimate object were eluding him like a trained spy. He suddenly spotted a blue ninja shoe sticking out from under his bed and dove underneath the bed, pulling out a white bag with his clothes inside. He grinned and hastily pulled his pants and shoes on. He was halfway through slipping his arms through his black shirt when the door slid open. He looked over and paled slightly. Naruto, what do you think you're doing? 2 brown orbs glared at the blonde. The Hokage walked into the room, her blonde hair gently swaying with every step she took. Naruto finished slipping his arms into the shirt and pulled it over his head. I haven't been out that long, Bar-chan, he whined. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. So, a month and a half isn't very long. Naruto, who had been slipping on his jacket, stopped and looked at her. A month and a half. Yes, Naruto. You have been unconscious for a month and a half. Tsunade took a seat and crossed her arms over her chest and her legs over one another, never letting her gleaming eyes leave the blonde who had finished slipping his jacket on. He left it unzipped and turned to look at the Hokage. Now, here is what I know. You collapsed almost 2 weeks after you brought Sasuke back. That's a week after you got out of the hospital. Kakashi found you at one of the training grounds, unconscious, supposedly from overworking yourself. The part that doesn't make sense is why you were so low on chakra. Naruto moved to interrupt, but Tsunade silenced him with a wave of her hand. Don't you dare say that it was because you were training. Your chakra reserves should have been up to full capacity by the time you had started training again, even if you started a few days before you were supposed to, understand? Naruto nodded. He was slightly perplexed by the lecture, but he was handling it. If he listened to Tsunade for a while, he could get out of the blasted white room and back to his apartment so he could sleep or maybe get something to eat. Therefore, there is no way you could have done something that drains your chakra that quickly. She leaned back in her chair, not realizing she had been bent over her knees. So now you are going to tell me what the hell caused you to have no chakra, and you are going to stay here so I can run more tests. Not to mention you just woke up from being unconscious for nearly 2 months, so you'll be going nowhere fast. Naruto sighed. What to tell her? The truth. He looked her in the eye and shuddered slightly. Tsunade was incredibly determined to find out what was wrong him, so the truth was out of the question. How long will it take for the test's results to get back? Tsunade eyed the blonde sitting on the bed curiously. A couple of days, why? I'll stay for the tests, Bar-chan, Naruto said softly. Just like that. You aren't even going to give me a reason. Naruto didn't move. He closed his eyes and rested his forehead on his hands, his knees supporting his elbows. Could I get something to eat, Bar-chan? Like you said, I have been unconscious for the past month and a half, so I am kind of hungry. Tsunade was about to yell at him for changing the subject when an Anbu appeared at the doorway. She looked at him expectantly and he walked over to her. He bent slightly and whispered in her ear. She nodded and dismissed him with a wave of her hand. Naruto, he turned his head slightly, still allowing his forehead to rest on the palms of his hands. Ino, Tenten, Hinata and Sakura are almost to the front gate. Tsunade stood as she spoke and watched Naruto carefully as he slipped the forehead protector from the bedside table and put it on. He looked at her, his eyes glimmering with something that Tsunade couldn't quite interpret. Let's go then. I know we haven't been home in a while, but I really don't want to go back, Ino mumbled as she stretched her arms up in the air. Her pale gold hair reached to just above her butt, gliding gently down her back in thick waves. Her blue-gray eyes were closed as she stretched her sore muscles. The wind picked up again and she quickly swatted at the hem of her deep purple, halter-top dress, which hit just above her knees, in an attempt to keep the billowing fabric wrapped around her legs. I know what you mean, but I need to start making some money, especially if I want to move out like I told you was going to, Tenten said from next Ino. Tenten's rich brown hair was a mass of curls that reached her shoulders. It was held back by a headband of different shades of brown, fading into one another, and little silver sequins were scattered randomly across it. Her brown eyes were closed in her fit of giggles. The girl wore a fitted rose-red jacket that cut off at the top of her stomach, over a pure black t-shirt. She wore a pair of black Bermuda shorts with a small red stat kunai on her back pocket. Me too, Hinata said softly. I need to get out the Hyuga clan houses. I can't street stand that place for much longer. Her deep blue-black hair fell down to the middle of her back. Her lavender eyes were glinting with disgust despite at the memory of the way her parents treat her in the Hyuga clan house. Hinata wore a tight-fitting lavender t-shirt, bright turquoise flowers littering the entire shirt with a pair of chocolate-brown capris, a vine of turquoise crawling up one leg. The only thing unchanged were the ninja shoes that adorned her feet. You know what, Hinata? You and I should move into a place together. I really don't want to live by myself, and we can get out of our houses sooner than individually. What do you think? Tenten reasoned, grasping Hinata's arm. Hinata smiled softly. That sounds great, Tenten-chan, she said, her smile growing even wider at the prospect of escaping from her parents. Ino looked to her other side to see Sakura smiling at her two friends. Hey, forehead, Sakura looked at Ino interested for several seconds before Ino spoke again. You want to move out of your boyfriend? Ino had already landed on the ground in her unladylike ball. Sakura walked away, muttering curses under her breath. Her bubblegum pink hair just barely reached her shoulders, and the forehead protector that usually kept her bangs from her face was now replaced by a white and light green spotted ribbon. Sakura's seafoam green eyes seemed more brilliant than normal as the green spots on the bow made them glimmer with rage like a sun on water, but they seemed to hold a great wisdom and sadness that was beyond her years. She wore a white down, sleeveless vest over a green t-shirt that like the bow matched her enraged eyes. A white jean skirt hit her mid-thigh, contrasting nicely with her black boots that hit just below the knee. Do you enjoy tormenting her with the secrets she tells you, Ino? Tenten asked the blonde as she stood up and dusted herself off. Of course not, Ino scoffed. I just love watching her squirm about it. Tenten and Hinata sweat dropped. Isn't that the same thing? Hinata said meekly from next to Tenten. Ino had already taken off after Sakura, who was almost to the gate. Tenten rolled her eyes. Who knows with those two, Hinata? Who knows? Tenten and Hinata caught up to Sakura and Ino, who were now having a heated argument about their love lives. I am not in love with him. We had this discussion every day since we got to the hot springs, Ino pig. Sakura yelled at Ino. And you have yet to give a straight answer, forehead. Ino yelled back. What about you, Ino? You expect me to spill everything about my love life and yet you won't give us the slightest hint if the hottest kunoichi in the village hidden in the leaves even has a love life. Ino was to say dumbfounded by what Sakura said. She rounded on Hinata and Tenten. Is that true? Hinata was about to stutter out an answer when Tenten answered before her. We have no opinion nor place in this matter, Tenten said, officially patting Hinata lightly on the shoulder as they continued walking towards the gates. Sakura caught up to them, not wanting to be around Ino longer than what was necessary, especially with the tantrum that was about to come. That's not true, Sakura. I do have a love life, she screamed, hurling herself in the direction of Hinata, Tenten and Sakura, who were all trying not to fall over laughing. The girls walked through the gate waving at the guards who smiled at them. The four of them walked for several more steps before they saw two figures approaching them. Ino smiled. Oh, looky, it's Sakura's. She was cut off as a pair of hands covered her mouth. Ino, for once shut up, Tenten murmured in her ear as she released Ino from her hold and stood next to Sakura and Hinata. The Hokage walked up and the girls bowed. We're back, Hokage-sama, they chorused as they stood up straight, their faces bright and relaxed. You all look better. That's great to know, she smiled. Unfortunately, missions start tomorrow. The girl's sweat dropped. Happy to evil in less than a second was a new record for her. Sakura took the time to glance over Naruto. His arms were behind his head in his normal laid-back position. He had left his jacket unzipped, probably because of the late summer heat. It was August after all. But what Sakura noticed most was the fact that he looked exhausted and his gaze was far off, as if he was haunted by something. Well, now that we got that out of the way, I have some rather important news to share with you. Tsunade glanced at Naruto, taking in his appearance and demeanor. She turned back to the four eager kunoichi. The day after you left, I commissioned a mission to retrieve Sasuke Uchiha, who had been spotted about 10 miles south of Konoha. The team consisted of the remaining rookie 12 and they were successful in bringing him back despite a small elite group of ninja under his command. He's been staying at the hospital until the council has decided what to do with him. Any questions? The four kunoichi could only stare at the Hokage. Naruto had come back to the real world and was watching Sakura's reaction with interest. Oddly, or perhaps it wasn't that odd, she recovered first. Tsunade Shushu, he is seriously back. Tsunade nodded. He's up if you want to see him, Sakura. Sakura had no time to answer as Naruto spoke softly, his hands somehow making their way into his pockets without anyone realizing it. Come on, Sakura-chan. I'll take you to see him. Sakura barely nodded as Naruto began to walk away. Tsunade, Ino, Tenten and Hinata watched them go. When they were out of earshot, Tsunade spoke. Something is wrong with him. Tsunade Shushu. Ino asked in curiosity. Ino, Tenten and Hinata. You cannot tell Sakura this, but Naruto has been in a coma-like state for the last month and a half. He only woke up about 30 minutes before the four of you got back, Tsunade explained. Naruto-kun was in a coma. Why? Tenten asked. I don't know and I haven't been able to run any tests on him since he came in, Tsunade explained. Did it have something to do with fighting Sasuke? Ino asked. Tsunade shook her head. The part that doesn't make sense is the fact he collapsed 2 weeks after he fought Sasuke, a week after he had already been treated for the actual fight. Then what could be wrong with him? Hinata asked softly. I wish I knew. I really do, for his sake and for her sake. Last time on Smile of Warmth. So now you are going to tell me what the hell caused you to have no chakra and you are going to stay here so I can run more tests. Not to mention you just woke up from being unconscious for nearly 2 months, so you'll be going nowhere fast. Naruto sighed. What to tell her? The truth. He looked her in the eye and shuddered slightly. Tsunade was incredibly determined to find out what was wrong him, so the truth was out of the question. The day after you left, I commissioned a mission to retrieve Sasuke Uchiha, who had been spotted about 10 miles south of Konoha. The team consisted of the remaining rookie 12 and they were successful in bringing him back despite a small elite group of ninja under his command. He's been staying at the hospital until the council has decided what to do with him. Any questions? The four kunoichi could only stare at the Hokage. Out OFN. Info on my last time part. These are snippets that I find important from the last chapter. I find it really confusing if I don't remember anything from the last chapter that could be crucial for this one, and I find it too troublesome, all hail Shikamaru's trademark word, to reread the chapter. So here you go. Chapter 2. I can't do this, Naruto. Sakura and Naruto were standing outside Sasuke's room. Why not? You look fine, Naruto stated calmly from his position leaning against the door frame. That's not what I meant, Naruto. Sakura sweat dropped, eyeing the door as if it was a predator waiting to strike. I meant, what do I say to him? It's been 3 years since we last saw him. I mean, what is he like? How will he react? Is he the same as when we last saw him? Naruto, you have to know the answers to these questions. He has been back for quite a while now, right? Sakura smiled at the blonde. Naruto faltered for several seconds. Yeah, but Bar-chan has been keeping me really busy and I am not exactly allowed to see him, Naruto said, scratching the back of his head nervously. Part of what he said was true. He hadn't been allowed near Sasuke's room before he collapsed because they kept getting into fights and nearly destroying parts of the hospital if it wasn't for Kakashi and some Anbu guarding Sasuke. You two were back to your own destructive ways, weren't you? A black cloud covered Naruto's head and he bowed his head. That's so cruel, Sakura-chan. I didn't try to K the team. He tried to K me. Sakura raised an eyebrow at him. Whatever, Naruto. She looked back to the door. On to more pressing matters, Naruto sighed and crossed his arms over his chest. Sakura-chan, Sasuke is a good ninja, right? Sakura looked at Naruto. No duh, Naruto, she scoffed at him. So what? A good ninja can sense other ninjas' chakra and know if they recognize it, right? Sakura looked at Naruto as if he were an idiot, so basically the same old face Sakura always used on him. Yes, Naruto. They do, she said as if she were talking to a small child. I have yet to see the point in your toddler-like questions. Naruto sweat dropped and mushroom sighed. Fine, Sakura-chan, Naruto said, looking at the door and then at Sakura. If Sasuke is a good ninja and good ninja can sense chakra, then wouldn't Sasuke already know you were here? Sakura faltered and turned slowly to face Naruto. Why didn't he say that sooner? Sakura tick-marked. Naruto, you barker. Sakura punched him, sending his head flying back into the wall. Ow. Sakura-chan. That hurt. Naruto squatted down, cradling his head. Good. You should have told me that sooner instead of watching me squirm like that. Sakura screamed in his ear. Just trying to make you look smart, Sakura-chan, Naruto mused to himself as he straightened up. Since we got that out of the way, get in there, Sakura-chan. Sakura barely had time to balance herself as Naruto opened the door and pushed her inside. The door slid closed as she looked back at it, fully prepared to break it down if necessary. Her body went cold as a voice echoed through the room and her suddenly blank mind. Sakura. Naruto was leaning against the door, listening to his teammates inside, his head bent over slightly. Sakura had yet to say anything, her back was still to Sasuke. Naruto guessed as he could just feel the warmth of her chakra coming through the door. The warmth left and Naruto leaned his against the door, his eye staring blankly up at the ceiling. Hey, Sasuke, Naruto couldn't help but smile. All that worrying, and she was more confident than Naruto was when he had seen Sasuke for the first time since they had fought. How are you feeling? Fine. Yourself? Fine. Silence ensued for what seemed like days to Naruto. He was about to leave, when muffled sobs emitted from the room. Naruto closed his eyes. Damn it, Sasuke. You're such an idiot. I'm sorry, Sakura. Naruto flipped around and looked through the small crack in the door. Sasuke was hugging Sakura, as she pressed her face into his black shirt. Sakura's sobs were soon being quieted by Sasuke's small murmurs of comfort. I'm sorry I left, Sakura. I should have stayed. I should have told you the truth. What truth, Sasuke? Sakura asked through her small sniffles. She looked up into Sasuke's eyes. Sasuke suddenly kissed her, Sakura's eyes widening. Naruto took a single, stuttering step away from the door as the truth hit him. I fell in love with you, Sakura, Sasuke whispered. Naruto felt his chest tighten. He took a shuddering breath and closed his eyes. Without realizing, he began to walk down the hall, out of the hospital, past Ichirakus, past shops filled with people. He was oblivious to it all. He didn't stop until he reached his door. Naruto seemed to stop, slightly confused on how he got there. It all came back and he sighed, as he opened the door and walked inside. Naruto collapsed onto the couch, his face pressing into his pillow. The couch had been his bed since Sakura had moved in with him, so he was used to falling onto it. Naruto felt slightly dazed. Maybe it was from just awaking from a cum-like state this morning, or maybe it was the fact that he had just watched his best friend and crush announce their love for one another. Naruto wasn't quite sure. A thought suddenly hit him as he laid there on the couch, his body slowly slipping into slumber. I should have known, he mumbled, his eyes drooping and closing. I should have known once he was back she'd be back in his arms just like before. Naruto felt his whole body go numb as he fell asleep, the same thought echoing through his mind, accompanying the other thoughts that plagued his dreams. I fell in love with you, Sakura, Sasuke whispered. Sakura's mind had shut down after the kiss, or merely the speaking part. She couldn't say a word to him, letting her mouth open and close as she tried to piece together a sentence to follow that kiss. That kiss. Sakura closed her eyes, her mind remembering the kiss. It was a great kiss, but what? If you are gonna choose him, you better say that kiss was heaven on earth. Her inner self huffed. What's your problem? You don't know. OMG, I thought you were smart, but I guess I was wrong. Stop talking to me until you figure out what I am talking about. Sakura's inner self slammed a crudely drawn door in her face. What does she mean? Sakura wondered mentally. She opened her eyes and leaned her head into Sasuke's chest, allowing him to wrap his arms more tightly around her. That kiss gave me butterflies in my stomach. Good or bad, I don't know. He finally loves me, isn't that what counts? Sakura mentally debated with herself, sending out an option and shooting it down. She finally pulled away from Sasuke's chest and smiled slightly at him, her mind made up. So when do you get out of here, Sasuke-kun? Sasuke smirked slightly, a small glint in his eyes. His mind was calculating how well this fit into his plan. Sakura's smile grew wider as she mistook the evil glint for a shimmer of happiness. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.